Let's be real for a second. Few things are as frustrating as putting in the effort and feeling like you're not moving forwards. You're training, you're eating better, you're showing up. And at first you see those results. The weight comes off, strength goes up, and energy improves. But then it stops. And it feels like you've slammed into a brick wall. The scale won't budge. The barbell feels the same. Your runs are stuck at the same pace. And you're in a plateau. And here's what most people think when this happens. I must be broken. Or worse. Maybe this just isn't working. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should quit. But the truth is you're not broken. And you definitely shouldn't quit. Plateaus aren't signs of failure. They're signs of progress. That means your body has adapted. You've leveled up to the point where the old stress isn't a challenge anymore. And the key difference between athletes and everyone else is that athletes expect plateaus. They know it's part of the game. They hit them too, all the time. Serena Williams didn't dominate tennis for 2 decades without hitting periods where her game stalled. Eliud Kipchoge doesn't run sub 2-hour marathons because progress is always linear. They all plateau. The difference is that athletes see plateaus not as the end, but as a signal that it's time to change something. And that's what I want to give to you today. The understanding, the tools, and the confidence to stop seeing plateaus as punishment and start seeing them as feedback. Because when you know why they happen and what to do about them, they stop being walls and start being checkpoints. So, pop on those trainers and get that cup of tea ready, and we'll dive straight in. So why do plateaus happen? Your body is built for survival. The number one job is efficiency. And when you start something new, lifting weights, running, changing your diet, your body is shocked. It's inefficient at first, so progress comes quickly. You lose fat, gain strength, or improve endurance because the body is scrambling to adapt. But here's the thing, your body doesn't like being inefficient. Over time, it figures out how to do the same task with less effort. Your muscles become more coordinated, your nervous system becomes more efficient, and your calories burned for the same activity actually drop. And suddenly, what used to be hard becomes easy, and that's where the plateau hits. See, Olympic weightlifters are masters of this. They know they can't just lift the same weight, the same reps, forever. So they use periodization. That's cycling your training blocks with different goals. Sometimes focusing on hypertrophy, sometimes raw strength, sometimes explosive power. That's how they avoid stagnation. My client Sophie, who started deadlifting with me, in the first 8 weeks, her numbers grew. But after 3 months, there was nothing. She thought she was stuck, but the reality was that her body had adapted. And we added tempo reps and paused lifts. It's the same exercise, but a new stimulus. And then she smashed through that plateau. So if your training feels stale, don't quit. Change the stress. Add weight, adjust reps, slow down the tempo, or change rest times. Same muscles, new challenge. Plateaus aren't just physical. They can be mental too. Doing the same thing over and over and over can bore your brain. At first, a new workout lights you up. Novelty gives you dopamine. But once you've repeated it 50 or so times, your brain checks out, your intensity drops, your focus slips, and your results may stall. Serena Williams famously rebuilt her game mid-career. She added more net play, improved her serve, and adapted strategy because the same style that once won championships started to lose its edge. She didn't quit though. She just reinvented. One of my clients used to run the same 5K route 3 times a week. At first she got faster and fitter. 6 months in, nothing. Not because she was unfit, but because mentally she was checked out. We mixed in intervals, hills, and cross-training, and then suddenly she lit up again, and the results followed. And I've hit the wall myself. As an athlete, I used to repeat the same drills endlessly, and at first they worked, but over time I felt stale, like I wasn't improving. It wasn't until I switched up my training, adding more strength work, reaction drills, some sparring with new partners, that I broke through. And then it changed the trajectory of my performance. So if you're dreading your workout, change it. Try a new class, a new format, or even just a new playlist. Novelty isn't weakness, it's fuel. Sometimes the plateau isn't about training at all. It can be about everything else. Your body doesn't live in the gym. It lives in your life. And if your recovery, sleep, and stress management aren't aligned, your progress can stall. Eliud Kipchoge doesn't just train. He rests, he naps, he eats simply, and protects recovery as much as training. And that's why he can keep improving into his late 30s. And one of my other clients, Tom, thought he plateaued on his bench press. He hadn't gone up in months. And when we looked closer, he was sleeping only 5 hours a night and eating less than 80 grams of protein and living on caffeine. It wasn't the bench holding him back. It was his recovery. And once we fixed his nutrition and sleep, his numbers climbed again. And when I was prepping for competitions, I hit a training plateau where I couldn't seem to get faster or sharper. I thought I needed more sessions, but in reality, I just needed more sleep. And once I committed to an earlier bedtime, everything fell back into place again. See, sometimes progress isn't about adding more. It's about recovering better. So here's an action tip for you. Audit your recovery. Ask yourself, am I sleeping enough? Am I eating enough protein and calories? Am I managing stress? And if the answer is no, start there before blaming the workout. So let's do a mini recap. Plateaus happen because your body adapts, your brain gets bored, or your life outside training isn't supporting your effort. And none of these mean you're broken. They mean you've reached the next checkpoint. Here's a reflection for you. If you're feeling stuck right now, which of these 3 is the most likely causing your plateau? Physiology, psychology, or lifestyle? Pick one. Be honest. And know this. Once you identify it, you can fix it. Here's the thing about athletes. They don't fear plateau. They expect them. They plan for them. And when they arrive, they don't see them as a dead end. They see them as a signpost that says it's time to adapt. That's what makes them different. When most people quit, athletes get curious. They ask, what needs to change? What's the next lever I can pull? And the strategies they use aren't reserved for elite sport. You can apply them too. So let's start with strategy 1, progressive overload. So your body wants to adapt to stress. If you want it to keep adapting, you have to increase that stress in a smart way. So more weights, or more reps, or more sets, less rest, or a hard variation. That's progressive overload. Powerlifters and Olympic weightlifters live by this. They track every lift, every set, every load. If they benched 100 kilos for 5 reps last week, They'll aim for 6 reps this week, or 102.5 kilos. Tiny increments, but over time is massive progress. Another one of my clients, she was stuck squatting the same 40 kilos for months. She thought she plateaued forever, but the truth was that she hadn't pushed progressive overload. Once we added 1.25 kilos every week, her squat climbed past 70 kilos in less than a year. So if your training journal looks the same every week, that's your plateau. Add one more rep, one more set, or a small weight increase. The smallest tweak can break the biggest wall. Now let's look at strategy 2, periodisation, training in seasons. So athletes don't just push harder forever. That's a mistake most people make. They think if they stall, they need to double down, train harder, add more volume. But athletes know the secret is periodisation, training in seasons. Swimmers like Michael Phelps don't train flat out all year. They have off-season, base building phases, intensity blocks, taper weeks before competition. That ebb and flow is what keeps progress moving. Think of it like gardening. You don't just plant and harvest non-stop. There are seasons. And that's the same with training. You might spend 8 weeks focusing on strength, then switch to hypertrophy, then work on endurance. Each block feeds the next. One of my Ironman triathletes was training hard but flattened on his times. He'd been doing the same sessions for months, and once we periodised his training, alternating intensity with recovery blocks, he smashed his PB by over 2 hours. So if you've been doing the same style of training for months, change the phase. Swap high reps for heavy lifting, long cardio for interval work, or vice versa. New season, new results. Or strategy 3, data tracking. So here's another athlete secret. They track everything. Runners log mileage and pace. Cyclists track power output. And weightlifters record every set. Athletes don't guess, they measure. Why? Because plateaus often aren't plateaus at all. They're just invisible progress. Maybe your weight hasn't dropped, but your body composition has changed. Maybe your lifts feel stuck, but your form has improved. Data tells the truth. For example, Lewis Hamilton's F1 team analyses thousands of data points every lap. If performance stalls, they don't say, well, that's it, we're done. They say, what does the data tell us? And then they adjust. One of my other fabulous clients, Mark, he swore he plateaued in fat loss. The scale hadn't moved in weeks, but when we did body measurements, he'd lost 6 centimetres off his waist. His weight plateaued, but his body was changing. Without data, he would have quit. So don't just track your weight. Track your lifts, your times, your waist, your photos, sleep and energy. Progress shows up in more than one place. And strategy 4, recovery as a plateau buster. And sometimes the way through a plateau isn't doing more, it's doing less. Athletes know this. They schedule deload or download weeks, naps, recovery blocks. They understand that you can't just keep climbing without rest. You need to recharge to break through. So for example, Eliud Kipchoge's training isn't just about running. It's about resting between runs. His naps are as important as his miles. And one of my other clients was stuck on her lifts. She kept training harder, adding more sessions, but her sleep was a mess. And when we scaled her back to 3 quality sessions, fixed her bedtime, and boom, she broke through that plateau within weeks. So ask yourself, am I plateaued because I'm undertrained or because I'm under-recovered? If you're tired, sore, or irritable, rest might be your unlock. Or strategy 5, fueling for progress. You can't drive a Ferrari on fumes. Athletes know nutrition is the foundation of progress. If you're under-eating or under-fueling, you'll plateau fast. Simone Biles doesn't just fuel for gymnastics practice. She fuels for recovery, energy, and mental clarity. That balance is what allows her to train at world-class intensity. One of my clients thought she plateaued on fat loss. She wasn't losing weight. But checking her food diary, she was eating only 1,000 calories a day. Her body had hit survival mode. And when we increased her calories gradually and focused on her protein intake, the weight started moving again. Sometimes eating more breaks the plateau. So maybe track your nutrition for 1 week and be honest. Are you fueling enough to perform, or are you under-eating and sabotaging your progress? So let's pull all this together. Athletes break through their plateaus by progressively increasing the challenge, by training in seasons, not flat lines, by tracking everything, not guessing, prioritizing their recovery as much as their training, and fueling their body properly. So here's your reflection prompt. Which of those 5 are you missing right now? Because the plateau you're facing isn't permanent. It's just pointing you towards the next lever you need to pull. All right, so let's bring this back down to earth. Because yes, athletes use progressive overload, periodization, recovery strategies, and nutrition tweaks. But here's the thing, you don't need to be a pro athlete to apply the same principles. You don't need a high-performance lab or a team of sports scientists. You just need some simple, everyday strategies that stop you from spinning your wheels. Strategy 1. Change the training variable. If you've been doing the same workout for months, same sets, same reps, same weights, no wonder you're stuck. Your body's gone on autopilot. And the good news is that you don't need to reinvent the wheel, you just need to tweak one variable. So if you've always done 3 sets of 10, try 4 sets of 8 with a heavier weight. If you've always run steady state, add some intervals. 1 minute hard, 2 minutes easy. And if you've always rested for 2 minutes, cut to 90 seconds and feel the burn. One of my clients was convinced that his chest press had plateaued. He benched the same 60 kilos for months. We didn't even add weight. We slowed down his tempo, 3 seconds lowering, 1 second pause at the bottom. And within 4 weeks, his chest strength and size had improved. Same exercise, just a new stimulus. So this week, how about changing just one thing about your training? Your reps, your sets, your tempo, rest, or exercise variation. Small changes can lead to big breakthroughs. Strategy 2. Prioritize recovery. More isn't always more. And this is a mistake that nearly everyone makes. When they hit a plateau, they'll add more. More workouts, more cardio, more intensity. But sometimes the problem isn't under-training, it's under-recovering. Think about when you've had a rough week at work. You're knackered, you've slept badly, but you still try to push through a heavy gym session. How does it feel? Does it feel flat, heavy, like you're dragging your body through quicksand? Now imagine giving yourself an extra rest day, sleeping 8 hours, eating properly. Suddenly that same session feels completely different. One of my ladies' boxing class regulars thought she plateaued because her punch power wasn't improving. But she was training 6 days a week, barely sleeping. I cut her down to 4 sessions a week and gave her recovery protocols, and then boom, her power increased again. So if you've plateaued, try this. Take 1 week to deload. Lower your weights, cut the volume, or take an extra rest day. See how your body responds. Sometimes less really is more. Strategy 3. Fuel properly, because nutrition is the hidden plateau. You can't out-train poor fueling. And so many people plateau not because the training is wrong, but because the nutrition doesn't match the goal. If you want to gain muscle, you need a surplus. If you want to lose fat, you need a deficit, but not an extreme one. If you want performance, you need carbs, not just salad. One of my clients swore she couldn't lose fat. She was eating healthy, salads, soups, low-calorie everything. But she was under-eating her protein. And when we doubled her protein intake, within weeks she started losing that fat and building lean muscle. It's the same calories, but a different balance. Think of it like this. F1 cars, they all look fast, but if you fill one with the wrong fuel, it won't even start. Your body is the same. Right training, wrong fuel, equals plateau. So a mini action tip for you. Audit your nutrition. Are you fueling for your goal, or just eating better? Track your protein, your calories, or even just your energy levels after meals. Nutrition might be your missing piece. And strategy 4, break the routine. Shock your system. Another trick athletes and coaches use is novelty. Not random, gimmicky novelty, but enough variety to relight the fire. If you've been training in the gym, try an outdoor boot camp. If you've been running, swap one run for a cycle or a swim. And if you've been lifting alone, grab a buddy and train together. I had a client who was plateaued on her fat loss and totally bored of the gym. We added a boxing class once a week, and she loved it. She burned a ton of calories, and suddenly her motivation and results skyrocketed. So an action tip for you. Add one brand new activity this month. Something fun, something that scares you a little. Variety isn't just good for the body, it's good for the brain. And strategy 5, accountability and tracking. Stop your guessing. And we touched on this a little in the last episode, but it's huge here too. Most people plateau because they don't actually know what they're doing. They're guessing. And when you guess, you miss the pattern. Imagine saying, I'm saving money, but never checking your bank balance. You wouldn't know if it's working. It's the same with your training. One of my clients thought she plateaued on her fat loss, but we tracked her food, honestly. We realised she was eating an extra 400 calories a day from snacks, and she wasn't counting them. Once she became accountable for that, her progress restarted. So, track one thing this week. Your workouts, your food, your sleep, or even just your step count. Shine a light on the plateau. You might find it's not a plateau at all. And strategy 6. Shift the goalposts. Find a new marker of progress. Sometimes the plateau isn't real, it's just you measuring the wrong metric. If you only track weight, you'll miss the fact that you're stronger, fitter, or leaner. And if you only track strength, you'll miss the fact that your conditioning may have improved. Another wonderful client of mine, Martin, he was gutted that his scale weight hadn't moved in about 4 weeks. But his waist was 6 centimetres smaller. His lifts were stronger, and he'd dropped a clothing size. He hadn't plateaued at all. He was winning. So if the scale isn't moving for you, track your waist, your progress photos, or your performance goals. Sometimes the progress is there. You just need to look in the right place. So here's your reflection pause. Which of these 6 everyday strategies could you apply this week? You could change a training variable. You could prioritize your recovery. You could audit your nutrition. You could add novelty. You could track something or shift your goalposts. Pick one. Start small, because the way out of a plateau isn't to do everything. It's to do something different. So let's look at the mindset of plateaus. And the truth is, the most important plateau busting strategy isn't physical, it's mental. Because how you think about a plateau will determine what you do about a plateau. Most people see plateaus as punishment. They think, I'm stuck, I'm failing, what's the point? But athletes, they see plateaus as information, as feedback, as the body's way of saying, congratulations, you've adapted. Now what's next? And that's the shift I want you to make. From frustration to curiosity, from punishment to progress, from quitting to adjusting. Take Serena Williams. She didn't win 23 Grand Slam titles by expecting progress to be linear. She reinvented herself. She adjusted her game when others caught up. She worked through losses that would have broken most players. Her mindset wasn't, I've plateaued, so I'm done. It was, I've plateaued, so I'm ready to evolve. That's the athlete mindset, and that's the one you can borrow. Kobe Bryant, again, the Mamba mentality. When he plateaued, he didn't panic. He leaned into the grind. And he said, everything negative, pressure, challenges, is all an opportunity for me to rise. See, plateaus are pressure. They're challenges, but they're also opportunities. Every plateau is a doorway to your next level, if you walk through it. And I've lived this too. As an athlete, I hit a plateau before a big competition. My speed wasn't improving. No matter how hard I trained, I was frustrated. I questioned myself, even thought about whether I was good enough. But instead of quitting, I reframed it and I realized it wasn't about doing more. It was about doing different. I changed my approach. I added different strength and conditioning. I worked on my reaction time. And within weeks, I was sharper than ever. That plateau, it wasn't the end. It was just the turning point that led me to a win. And that's the power of seeing plateaus the way athletes do. See, Lewis Hamilton doesn't win races by pretending everything's perfect. When performance stalls, he doesn't sulk. He goes into debriefs. He asks what's working, what's not, what can I change? And that's the exact mindset shift that we all need. Instead of frustration, feedback. Instead of blame, curiosity. So here's where I want you to reflect. Think back to your last plateau. Did you get frustrated? Did you blame yourself? Did you think about quitting? Now imagine you'd handled it differently. Imagine you'd said, okay, my body's adapted. It's time to switch gears. Time to look at my sleep, nutrition, recovery, mindset. How different would the outcome have been? How much further along would you be right now? Here are 3 mindset shifts you can start using right away. Number 1, see plateaus as checkpoints, not walls. They mean you've graduated from one level and it's time to step up. Number 2, ask questions instead of making statements. Don't say, I'm failing. Ask, what needs to change? And number 3, focus on progress beyond the scale. Strength, endurance, recovery, mood, confidence. These are all wins too. Mindset is the filter. Change the filter and the plateau can look completely different. One of my fantastic clients, Claire, wasn't plateaued physically. She was plateaued mentally. She was progressing in the gym, but she didn't feel like she was, and her confidence had stalled. We reframed her mindset, celebrating the small wins that she was getting, recognizing the progress beyond the scale, and she broke through. And within months of this mindset shift, her lifts improved, her energy had improved, and her self-belief followed. So sometimes the plateau isn't in your muscles, it's in your mind. So here's a reflection pause for you. Next time you feel plateaued, what question will you ask yourself? Instead of why bother, try, what's my next lever? Instead of I'm stuck, try, I've adapted and it's time to level up. The language you use changes the action you take, and the action you take changes the results you get. So let's bring this all home. Plateaus happen to everyone. They're not failure, they're feedback. Athletes break through these plateaus by changing the stress, cycling their training, tracking their data, fueling properly, and most importantly, staying curious instead of quitting. And you can do the same. So here's your action step. Identify one area where you've plateaued: your strength, fat loss, energy, consistency. Pick one of the strategies we've covered today and apply it to this week. Don't wait, don't overthink. Just pick one lever and pull it. And remember that every plateau is proof that you've already made progress. You've adapted, you've grown, and now it's time for the next level. Thank you so much for listening to the Fundamentals of Fitness. If this episode has helped you, inspired you, or given you a new perspective, share it with a friend who's stuck on their own journey. Make sure you hit follow on Spotify or Apple or anywhere you get this podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you leave a review, it helps more people find the show. And if you're ready to break through your own plateau with personalised coaching and a science-backed plan, you can find me at abperformance.training. Until next time, keep showing up, keep levelling up, and remember that plateaus aren't the end. They're the beginning of your next breakthrough. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.